Hey everyone, welcome back to another video from A Man Talks FPL SC. In today's video, we're going to go through the best teams and players to potentially target for Game Week 22, as we've just got confirmation of the updated fixtures for Game Week 22. So we can go through my updated thinking in terms of my own team, chip strategy, should we play the free hit, lots of stuff to get through. So this is also going to be my initial reaction. So some of my thinking may change until the time we get to Game Week 22, but this is my kind of initial reaction. So if you guys enjoy the video, really appreciate a thumbs up. Do please consider subscribing to the channel as well, as it does show support for the channel, and all the thumbs up really do help out in terms of the algorithm. But let's get straight into it. So let's quickly go through which teams are actually going to have a double game week in Game Week 22. So you can see there we've got Brentford, Brighton, Burnley, Chelsea, Leicester, Manchester United, Tottenham and Watford. One thing to note with this double game week announcement is just below that is that the Premier League do have a caveat in terms of the fixture rearrangement, and that's should any of these teams' FA Cup third round matches this weekend be postponed, the second double game week 22 fixture will be affected. So while this is how it is currently, if there are any further postponements, we could see some of these teams actually lose that double game week, but this is the information that we're going to work on at the moment. And just looking at those teams, it's a bit of a meh reaction that I first had, because none of the big teams like Liverpool or Arsenal are going to be having a double game week that we originally thought, and none of the teams apart from say Watford have a real standout kind of double game week. Watford looked pretty good with a Newcastle away and a Burnley away as well, so you're definitely going to be looking at maybe some of their attacking players, but the rest of the teams, they don't really have two great fixtures. They've got maybe one good one and one pretty tough one, or maybe both are kind of average, so there's no real standout. And later on I'll get to whether we should play like a free hit, but my original reaction was a little bit underwhelming, to be honest, for double game week 22, but look, it still is a double game week, so there's still lots of points on offer. So I have also just mapped this out in my own little table, because what I wanted to do was just highlight obviously all the teams that will have a double, and also some teams that I think still have some very good single game week fixtures for game week 22. We want to take a look at the overall picture, because I think it's very important just to not get too fixated on double game week 22, because as you can see there, the teams that I've highlighted in orange, Everton, Liverpool and West Ham, those are teams that, I think a lot of people would have quite a few players from. So for Liverpool, your Trent Alexander-Arnold, your Diego Jota. West Ham, definitely if you recently went on the likes of Antonio and Jared Bowen, as we're still in the midst of Game Week 21 and they're currently within a double game week as well. And Everton, because they had a double game week this week as well. And that people also thought that they were going to have a double for Game Week 22. They've all got good fixtures. You can see Everton have Norwich, Liverpool have Brentford, and West Ham have Leeds. So I think it's just important to keep this in mind that, if you are building a free hit or you're looking to bring in players, don't just completely ignore these teams, because they are good teams. Liverpool and West Ham are very good teams with good single game week fixtures. Now, this will make a little bit more sense as we go through in a bit more of a deep dive into every team, but in the right hand column, I've got chip. This is basically, certain teams that I think that have decent fixtures after the actual double game week, which mean, they might actually be worth bringing in with free transfers, because you might want them longer term, versus teams that I think maybe could be just better used on a free hit, because you might just want them for this particular game week, but then moving forward you might not actually want them. So this key will make a little bit more sense as we go through each team. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through every team that has a double game week, but also touch on mainly Everton, Liverpool and West Ham, as they still do have some good options that we can consider. I'll go through a free hit draft as well and some thoughts on my own team. So starting off, Tottenham is one of the bigger teams to have a double game week. You can see there, game week 22, it's Arsenal at home and then Leicester away. So in terms of how this looks in terms of a free hit, I definitely think going with maybe at least 2, if not 3 Spurs players could be a good option, if on a free hit or with your free transfers. Reason being is that they've got very good underlying stats, and especially so with the likes of Conte coming in to manage the team. You can see there on the expected goals front, 4th best over the season, and in terms of expected goals conceded, they're also 4th best defensively. So they are a good team on the underlying numbers, and Conte has shown to have a pretty good impact in terms of the team. And I think Heung-min Son is probably going to be one of the more obvious selections. I think he's one of those players, if you don't have, I really do think that he is one of the best players to target, because he could offer good captaincy option. Harry Kane as well, if you don't want to go for Ronaldo in terms of a premium forward, or if you've already got him, the double up could be good, especially because Kane actually does have a very good record against both Arsenal and Leicester, and he has been looking a lot better in recent weeks as well, although overall Spurs did not look very good attacking wise against Watford recently, so that is something that we should keep in mind. But defensively they have looked very good, so I do like the likes of Reguilon. Eric Dyer I think is probably one of the more nailed on cheaper options, or you could even go for Emerson Royale, who did pick up a couple of bonus points in that last game week against Watford, although his crossing, to be honest, wasn't great if you looked at the highlights. Just in terms of looking at the forward fixtures for Spurs, I think if you haven't got them in already, I still think they're worth it on a free transfers because, you know, obviously it's a great double game week and they still have some good fixtures moving forward, the likes of Southampton and Wolves. There is an argument that you might actually just prefer to have them on a free hit because moving forward, you might not want to invest heavily in that team because, you know, Chelsea, Man City, Wolves are actually a pretty decent defense as well. They could potentially blank in game week 27. That's what that little blue checkbox means with a question mark. So Spurs moving forward, I think we've kind of gone past a lot of their really, really nice fixtures. They're starting to get into a bit more of a mixed run. So I don't necessarily think you have to go hard on them in your free transfers. I think obviously if you've got them, you're 100% keeping them. And if on a free hit, very much worthwhile considering quite a few of their players, but I don't think you need to necessarily break up your team to be transferring into, you know, taking multiple hits to get them in. So next up is Leicester, who have a pretty decent double game week in terms of having Burnley away and Spurs at home. So Spurs obviously pretty good defense as we just saw in the last slide. Burnley are a very good team to attack from an attacking point, so that's why I've got Maddison and Harvey Barnes. There's quite a few attacking players from Leicester who will be unavailable, so I think Daka is injured, I think Ian Nacho is now going to AFCON, and Jamie Vardy is currently a doubt as well, so that's why I've at the moment got Maddison and Barnes, although Maddison still is a doubt himself as well. Just putting their underlying statistics there, you can see 0.51 expected goal involvement per 90 minutes, I should quote that, for Maddison, and 0.32 for Barnes. We have seen recently that Maddison has been getting quite a few double-digit hauls, so I think on a free hit, definitely worthwhile considering, and I definitely did consider Leicester as more of that free hit type, because you can see after game week 22, they've got Brighton at home, Liverpool, West Ham, and Wolves, and then maybe Chelsea. So the run of fixtures for Leicester is not very good moving forward, so I don't necessarily think, you know, if you do free transfer them in, just keep in mind that you're going to be bringing them in with a pretty tough run of fixtures moving ahead. So I think on a free hit, they're great to consider because, you know, you can bring them in for the 1 week, but then, you know, they're not going to be in your team moving forward. But if you're trying to take -4s, -8s, I would maybe reconsider full Leicester options. I do think out of Maddison and Barnes, I probably do prefer Maddison because we've just seen more recently him actually hitting those double-digit returns and his underlying stats are better for the season. So he definitely would be the pick of the attackers for Leicester, in my opinion. But if you want to go for a more differential punt, you could go for Harvey Barnes. I don't think I'd be considering them on free transfers necessarily, but on a free hit, definitely worthwhile considering. Now, next up is Watford, and I think Watford is obviously one of those teams where, you know, they 100% have the best double game. You can see Newcastle away and Burnley away, two teams that have very poor defenses. Watford themselves, though, don't have that best underlying statistics. You can see there on expected goals conceded, they're actually worst in the entire Premier League, and expected goals, they're only 15th. So, on really, you know, I don't think you're really going to be considering any of their defenders. And I think it's really King and Dennis. Going forward, Watford have shown some, you know, examples that they can actually attack pretty well, despite the underlying statistics not being the best. Dennis has been on fire recently. He's the top scoring forward, so I'd 100% think on a free hit, Dennis should be in your team. You could potentially go with the double up of King as well, who actually has the better underlying statistics, but Dennis has got the hot form at the moment. Even on free transfers, I still think they're okay to consider because they have got Norwich in game week 23, so that is a very good fixture. West Ham away is a little bit tougher. Brighton, Aston Villa, you know, Manchester United haven't been the best defense recently, so longer term, I don't think they're necessarily the worst fixtures, which is why I've got Watford as kind of that free hit / free transfers. I think if you're using transfers to bring in the likes of Dennis and King, I don't mind that so much because they have got a nice fixture in game week 23, and there still are some okay ones. And the benefit with them as well is that they're very cheap, so they're easily benchable in your overall squad. So I don't really mind you bringing in transfers to get these guys in. On a free hit though, 100% would be considering Dennis and maybe even the double up because they do have the best double game week. So next up, we've got Manchester United. Manchester United have not been looking good very recently, but I still think because of the double game week, you know, Aston Villa away and Brentford away, 2 away games are not ideal, and Aston Villa and Brentford actually on an underlying stats basis are pretty good defensively, but Brentford, we still know, you know, they can concede a few goals, although Manchester United's attack has not been looking the best. I still think though that Ronaldo is worthwhile considering on a free transfer or on free hit, because you can see from game week 23 onwards, the United still have a good run of games. You know, after West Ham, they've got Burnley, Southampton, Leeds, and Watford. You would hope that Manchester United can turn things around, or at least Ronaldo, still posting very, very good underlying stats. 0.72 expected goal involvement per 90 minutes is pretty strong. So I don't think going with them on free transfers is a bad idea. On free hit, I definitely think I would be considering the likes of De Gea. I think he's going to be highly owned as well. So on a free hit, he's a pretty safe option to bring in with a double game week. He's probably going to be nailed on, obviously, for the 2 games. That's one question mark maybe with Ronaldo, is that we just don't quite know if he's going to play both games. The fact that it's Ronaldo, I think we can expect that he is going to get the chances, so it would be hard to go without him on a free hit, but obviously he's very, very expensive, 12.5 million. the difference is on a free hit, you have to take some risks, or you don't have to necessarily take risks, but it's a chance for you to be aggressive. So you might not like having Ronaldo longer term because he doesn't provide value, but for 1 week in a double game week, he could be worth the punt. So next up, I'm going to talk about Brighton. So Brighton we traditionally see as more of a defensive unit, and the underlying stats do back that up. You can see expected goals conceded over the season. They're the 7th best, so I do like the look of getting some Brighton defenders on a free hit or with the free transfers. I don't really mind actually getting them with free transfers, as that you can see from Game Week 25 they actually do have a decent run of games, Watford, Burnley, Villa and Newcastle. They do have a blank in Game Week 24, and Leicester away in 23 isn't the easiest because Leicester are a pretty good attack. But Cucurella is someone I really like the look of. I've kind of discussed him in previous videos. He's very good on the underlying bonus point system because he does have good chance creation. 5.1 million is not very expensive, so on a free hit, Crystal Palace at home and Chelsea at home, they benefit from 2 home fixtures, so I think that's really good in their favour. Chelsea obviously is a very tough matchup, and Crystal Palace have been a pretty good team as well, but this could be a good avenue to maybe go with like a Sanchez, even if he can't get clean sheets in either of those games. Hopefully he maybe gets some saves. He's actually been making more saves recently than what we kind of saw at the beginning of the season, so I don't mind going for Sanchez or a Cucurella to kind of cover off the Brighton defence. And Trossard I've got because he has been playing some false 9 position. Obviously Maupay has been playing as well. You could consider Maupay, but I think Crystal Palace and Chelsea are still pretty good defenders, so I think I do prefer going for a Brighton defender. And you can see the expected goals for Brighton as a team. They're only the 14th best in the entire Premier League, so attacking wise I don't trust them as much as their defence, so definitely I would be looking to target their defenders. So Cucurella and Sanchez I really like the look of. So also just quickly considering Chelsea, so they've got a pretty tough double game week of Man City away and Brighton away. So Man City obviously one of the, probably the toughest team to play in the Premier League, and Brighton, as we saw in the previous section, are actually quite a good defence. So from an attacking point of view, really I'd probably only maybe consider like a Mason Mount, but I think Man City is the top defence, so I think there's not too much on offer there for Chelsea, and I think I'd only be considering maybe the likes of Marcus Alonso. Now I think a lot of people probably are still holding on to the likes of Alonso. Then you can see that Chelsea has some pretty unfavourable fixtures, so they've got Tottenham in Game Week 23, then it's a blank in 24, and I think it's a pretty strong chance of a blank in 25, and then maybe another one in Game Week 27 at Leicester, and then Crystal Palace away is also not even the easiest fixture on paper, so I think long term definitely would not be considering to bring in Chelsea players, and I think I've already offloaded all of my Chelsea assets. I think if you've got still the likes of Mount or Alonso, definitely keep them for the double game week, but even on a free hit, I'm not even sure I would consider them because I still think there are better options. And as we're going to see a little bit later, I haven't actually included any Chelsea assets on my free hit draft, but Alonso hopefully should be nailed on for those 2 games. There's no real kind of left back coverage, so there could be a clean sheet potential against Brighton, and then Man City, it could just be the case of getting 1 or 2 points, but you never know in a double game week. So I think if you've got them, hold them, but if you don't have them, would not be looking to bring them in actively. And we'll also talk about Burnley. So they don't have a horrible double game week in terms of having Leicester and Watford at home. Both of those teams actually have pretty poor defenses, so going for a Burnley attacker, probably the best way that I go for it, or you could also cover off a cheap defender like a Matt Loughton. Chris Wood is probably the best attacker to go for now that Cornet has actually gone away on AFCON duties. He probably would have been a better option, but Wood with a 0.31 expected goal involvement per 90, not great on the stats front, and Burnley as an overall attack, you can see they're 16th in the entire league, so not really that good of an attacking unit, but on a free hit, this is the only way I'd be considering Burnley because it's a pretty decent double game week attacking wise, but after that you can see a lot of red fixtures from Game Week 23, so I'd only be considering getting Burnley options on a free hit. You could go for a Chris Wood. I think realistically though, probably you'd maybe just go for one of their cheap defenders like a Matt Loughton. Maybe you could argue like a Nick Pope. He's got good save potential if he is recovered, I think, from COVID, because he did have that, but realistically I'm not too keen on most of the Burnley assets. I think going for a Chris Wood is a big differential punt. Obviously on a free hit, this is the chance to take those risks, but whether you would transfer them in, I definitely wouldn't recommend that. And the final kind of double game week team to cover off is Brentford. So I don't think I'm going to go into too much detail with Brentford because you can see the double game week is not very good for them. Liverpool away, Manchester United at home. Honestly, I don't think Manchester United at home is a horrible fixture because Manchester United have not been looking the best, and there's been reports that like 17 of the first team are unhappy with the current coaching or management, whatever it is. They're obviously not looking in a good place, and Brentford, they actually looked pretty solid against Man City. You could argue Man City had a bit of an off day, it was in between that real fixture crunch. So Brentford have been pretty good underlying stats-wise defensively. We saw that at the beginning of the season, actually the 6th best in the entire Premier League. So I don't think it's a horrible move to go for one of their defenders on a free hit. He could be one of those cheaper options like an Ethan Pinnock who I've got here, who I think is about 4.6 million. He could be someone you just keep on the bench. I have put Ivan Toney there, but realistically I don't think you'd be going for their forwards or their attacking players, because overall as a team they haven't been the best attack recently, and Liverpool is a very good defence. Manchester United is not that good of a defence on a stats basis, but the fact that it's Manchester United, still, they're still a big club. They could probably have a good performance every now and then. So I don't really think going for a Brentford forward or attacker is the way, but covering off one of their defenders I don't think is a horrible idea. In terms of maybe the best way to bring them in, whether it's a free transfer or on a free hit, I think a free hit is probably more optimal method, because after this pretty tough double game week, they still have some tough fixtures. Wolves, pretty good defence. Man City, obviously toughest team in the competition. Crystal Palace is not a bad team, but they also have some decent underlying stats defensively. And then Arsenal. It's not really until game week 27 I think is when you maybe want to target Brentford options. So I think if you're looking to bring in Brentford players, probably would be on a free hit. And finally, kind of what I highlighted earlier with Everton, Liverpool and West Ham, I still think they're worthwhile considering because they have got very nice fixtures this game week. So Jared Bowen and Antonio, players I think a lot of managers would have been bringing in, given that they did have a double game week in game week 21. And Liverpool, obviously one of the best teams in the competition. They've got a nice fixture at home to Brentford in game week 22. So I still think going for a Trent, a Diego Jota and Andy Robinson is not a bad idea. And finally, we've got Everton, who have got a single game week against Norwich. So I think sticking with the likes of a Calvert-Lewin or a Demarai Gray are not bad options as well on a free hit. Demarai Gray especially is 5.5 million, so it's quite cheap. One player I didn't also add here is also Gordon from Everton. He's 4.5. He could be someone that could just be bench cover as well, with a nice single game week fixture. So I've gone through kind of most of the teams that I think I'll look to target and also their players. I just wanted to quickly touch on my own team just as an example of what I'm currently thinking. So as you can see there, I've currently got Ben Davies, Heung-min Son, Josh King and Cristiano Ronaldo as my double game week players. I do also have Ben Foster on the bench, but I'm unsure if he's going to be available. If he is, that'd be great because it's two nice fixtures, although Watford are not a good defence. So I've got 4 double game week fixtures, and there's not too many players that I think I'd be kind of afraid of, because the thing is I've still got the likes of Antonio and Bowen at home to Leeds. I've got Jota and Trent at home to Brentford. I've got obviously Dawson at home to Leeds as well. The only kind of 2 players I think in my starting 11 who don't have great fixtures this week is probably a Ramsdale who's away to Spurs, and Bernardo Silva who's home to Chelsea. The thing with Bernardo Silva is that they do have nice fixtures after this double game week. So Man City, I'm still looking to maybe potentially keep one of my Man City attackers, although if I'm looking to go a bit heavier on the double game week players, Bernardo Silva is probably the player that I would take out. Given the fact that I'm happy with the majority of my starting 11, I'm just not quite sure yet if I'd want to play a free hit. I'm not sure how much of upside I'm going to get in this particular double game week, and I think there might be some better opportunities further down the line. We'll get on that just in a little bit. So at the moment I can't actually tell you really, with my own team what kind of players I'd be looking to bring in. I might even look to bring in someone from, say, like a Leicester, so maybe a Bernardo Silva to a James Maddison, something I've initially thought. I do have the money to also even upgrade someone like a Ben Foster, if he's confirmed to be ruled out. I could upgrade Foster to like a De Gea and then bench Ramsdale. Maybe then that could open the opportunity to bench boost if I take another -4. So these are my initial reactions, but I need to give my own team a little bit more thought. I just wanted to get this video out though, just to kind of have my more immediate reaction. But what I'll quickly get into now is a free hit draft that I have made. Again, just kind of prefacing the fact that this is a initial free hit draft. I haven't thought about it too much, and from memory this draft had like 3 million, 4 million in the bank, because most of the players that you might want to consider are pretty cheap. But at the back there I've got De Gea, who would be my primary goalkeeper, and then Backman just as cover. If Foster is ruled out, he's nice and cheap with a nice double game week fixture. At the back there, I don't want to lose Trent at home to Brentford. I definitely would be bringing in a Spurs defender, so Reguilon would be my top choice. And then I've also wanted to get a Brighton defender, so I've got Cucurella. And then on the bench, I'd probably have Matt Loughton and Ethan Pinnock, both who have double game weeks in case of any kind of benching emergencies. In the midfield, I'd be playing a 4 of Jota, Maddison, Son, and then either Gray or Bowen, so it would just be one of the 2. Likely I probably would play Bowen over Everton, as I do trust West Ham just that little bit more. But again, Jota, I probably don't want to drop him before Brentford. Son would probably be one of the priority options, and he could potentially even be the captain in this particular squad. And then Maddison with a decent double game week of Burnley and Spurs. The front 3 looks a little bit strange given that I've gone Dennis and King. Originally I had a draft which had Ronaldo, Kane and Dennis, but I thought I wasn't so trusting of the Spurs attack, and given that Son and Kane cost like 20 something million versus Watford who are like 6 and 6, it's much cheaper investment on a free hit, and I just think you should just attack those fixtures the most that you possibly can. So Newcastle and Burnley for Watford, I think hands down is the best double game. So going a little bit all in on Watford attackers, whether or not that's the best thing to do, who knows, but it's a free hit, have a little bit of fun with it, and I think going with the pair of them could be a nice little differential, because I think most people, if they don't free hit, will only have one of them, and not everyone on a free hit I think will go for the pair of them. A lot of people I think will go for Ronaldo, Kane and a Dennis front three. So going for 2 in this particular free hit draft was a little bit more exciting, and I do think you might get a little bit more upside in this regard as well. And finally, I just wanted to kind of cover off longer term chip use and strategies as well, now that we do have some extra confirmation around Double Gameweek 22. So in the screenshots below, I've got @price_FPL, a great account to follow on Twitter, and I really like his thoughts here in that this was in relation to the postponement that Liverpool had with Arsenal, which is the reason why Liverpool and Arsenal actually don't have a double game week in 22. His immediate thoughts were that there's going to be some situation where Liverpool and Arsenal are both going to blank, and they're probably two teams that we might want to hold assets for the long term. So you can see the bottom row in my table is the kind of strategy that he's alluding to. So it might be not using the free hit in 22 and then using a triple captain in 26, because as you can see there in terms of Ben Crellin's tweet, because of the Liverpool postponement, Game week 26 could be a double game week for Liverpool over Norwich and Leeds. Now, if that was the case, Mo Salah, he'd be back from AFCON 100%, would be the triple captain to go for. So a triple captain in 26, you might as well lock that in if that is the case. And then in 27, when Liverpool and Arsenal blank, that could be a good opportunity to use a free hit, because you might want to keep your Liverpool players from game week 27 onwards, but to cover yourself off in that game week, you could use the free hit. You could use your second one if you still have it as well in 30, and then you could just play your wild card towards the back end of the season around other double game weeks to then use your bench boost. So that's maybe my updated thinking, because I don't know if I necessarily will play the free hit in 22. I think if we get any kind of postponements from the FA Cup that affect double game week 22, might change my thinking, but at the moment I'm leaning to not using the free hit. And so that bottom row there is my kind of updated thinking in terms of chip and longer term strategy. Right guys, that is my initial reaction and thoughts around the best teams and players to target for game week 22. It's double game week, we should always be excited for that. So hopefully you guys got some value out of the video. If you did, would really appreciate a subscription to the channel if you do enjoy the content, and a thumbs up would really help me out. It really does help out the algorithm and show support for the channel. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next video.